Thank you, Katrina, and to the University of Queensland for hosting this evening. My name is Emmanuel Giuffre and I'm Legal Counsel for Voiceless, the Animal Protection Institute. And on behalf of Voiceless, I'm pleased to welcome you all to this, our first Voiceless Rethinking seminar. For those of you that don't know, Voiceless is a not-for-profit think tank which is focused on raising awareness of animal suffering in two core areas: factory farming and the commercial kangaroo industry. Over the years, we've fought hard to better protect the hundreds of millions of animals affected by these industries, and our focus has always been on policy and law reform. In our view, only through the law will we see an end to the suffering of the 13 million birds confined in battery cages each year, or the tens of thousands of pregnant pigs confined in sow stalls or farrowing crates. Only through the law will we see an end to the dairy industry slaughter of 800,000 week-old bobby calves each year, or the thousands of joeys bludgeoned to death as part of the commercial kangaroo industry. Only through the law will we see an end to cruel animal exports, live animal exports. But to challenge the law and to create meaningful reform for animals, we also need to reevaluate our attitudes towards animals. The law is a reflection of society, and so much of our present use, misuse and abuse of animals is ingrained in our social norms. As such, we need to step back and rethink our relationship and indeed our assumed entitlement over animals. Voiceless Rethinking presents a platform for this discussion. This seminar series will look at animal protection issues from a new and sometimes challenging perspective. The series will present one-off seminars but at a number of locations across the country, bringing a new focus to the animal protection message. And what better way, to begin this challenging conversation than to consider speciesism? Tonight, we will be exploring the concept of speciesism from a psychological, ethical and legal perspective. But first, let's consider what we mean by speciesism. In its simplest form, it's about giving preferential treatment to one species over another. The theory was first coined by Richard Ryder in the 1970s and sought to explain mankind's discrimination against or exploitation of animals on the basis of their membership to a certain species. Speciesism can also be used to describe our preferential treatment of certain groups of animals over other groups of animals. For instance, in Australia, we love our dogs and cats, yet continue to eat pigs, cows and chickens in their hundreds and thousands. We condemn other nations for hunting whales and dolphins, but happily consume seafood and hunt fish for sport. These contradictions are often justified on the basis that humans and some animal groups simply matter more than others. But why? And how do we decide who matters and who doesn't? In this seminar, we will consider these psychological and ethical underpinnings of speciesism, the laws that regulate our relationship with animals, and how these laws facilitate discrimination on the basis of species. And to discuss these issues, we have assembled a panel of distinguished experts. Our first speaker this evening is Dr. Brock Bastian. Brock is an Australian Research Council Future Fellow working in the School of Psychology at the University of New South Wales. His research is focused on dehumanisation and morality and has been recognised by the Australian Psychological Association and the Society of Australasian Social Psychologists. Dr. Bastian will be looking at what he describes as the meat paradox, the psychological process of how we can love some animals while eating others. Dr. Bastian will be followed by Dr. Jonathan Crowe. Dr. Crowe is an Associate Professor in the University of Queensland School of Law and the current President of the Australian Society of Legal Philosophy. He holds a PhD in Law and Philosophy from the University of Queensland and has published widely on the relationship between law and ethics. Dr. Crowe will be exploring animal welfare and moral avoidance, and in particular, two mechanisms humans commonly use to avoid confronting their ethical responsibilities, namely scepticism and rationalisation. And finally, we'll be hearing from Jed Goodfellow. Jed is a PhD candidate in animal welfare regulation at the local legal governance concentration of research excellence at Macquarie Law School, where his research addresses the animal welfare regulatory framework within the Australian agriculture sector. Jed also teaches animal law at Macquarie and works as a policy officer for RSPCA Australia. Jed will be looking at the development of speciesism in law throughout history and we'll explore the varied legal manifestations of speciesism within the common law, animal welfare legislation, and through the implementation and enforcement of such legislation. At the end of these presentations, we'll also have some time for Q&A, so please have your questions ready and hold them to the end. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Brock Bastian.